So welcome back to Nothing Beats Rock.
Beats Rock.
Super Bowl, probably one of the best games ever.
That was a good one.
I mean, it's hard to rank them, but I mean, it was a top game.
Yeah.
Competitive.
Yeah.
It's only the second overtime game ever, so
Yeah.
obviously it was close.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs came out on top.
Yeah.
They did well.
Patrick Mahomes gets his third.
Yeah. And really, the 49ers didn't play poorly. They had a couple of mistakes and maybe one or two bad coaching decisions, getting the ball in overtime.
There's some questions with that one, but
it seems like a no-brainer that you play defense first. And when they took the ball first, I just was kind of stunned.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to Andy Reid's preparation with what they were saying, that they had been talking about that from training camp, and you could see how that kind of situation could sneak up.
In the reports, even an hour after the game, the 49ers were unaware of how the overtime worked.
Yeah.
Although most of the world was unaware of how it worked, but they didn't have the announcers explaining it to them.
Yeah, it was interesting with what the Chiefs said. What the philosophy was you wanted to be on defense first. Then you knew what you had to do. If the other team scored the touchdown, then if you score the touchdown, you're going for two. If you don't get the touchdown, well, you lost anyway. Yeah. But that you're going for two, so that you're either winning it or losing it right there. There's no kicking off and having another possession. It's it's right here.
Yeah.
And
if you know
seems to be sound philosophy.
If you know what the other team accomplished, then you know it's 4-down territory.
Yeah.
And they had that from the start. They knew that when the Chiefs got the ball in overtime, they needed to score a touchdown. Yeah. And a field goal just prolonged the agony. It's well, we need to win this now. Yeah. And it just I just don't understand why the 49ers went for the ball first.
Yeah.
Because
in the regular season you want to. For sure, in the regular season, you want to take the ball first. Now, when hey, if you go down and get a touchdown, the game's over. You can win it right there. So it seems like just, a tiny bit of a lack of preparation, maybe. A lack of studying. Hey, if this scenario comes up, how do you want to handle that?
Right.
And you could make the argument, God, if they go down and kick a field goal, then they hold the Chiefs to a field goal. If they stop them and the Chiefs have to kick a field goal, they're going to get the ball next. But it doesn't seem like that was the 49ers thinking. No. It was just, we want the ball.
Right. They did the coin toss and bam, we want the ball.
Yeah.
It was just oh no, that seemed like a horrible idea. The only other thing, turnovers, everything else was pretty even.
Yeah.
There was the bad luck play for the 49ers on the punt.
The punt.
I don't know how, it's not like you can prevent that really. It was just bad luck.
Yeah.
They went for it on the fourth down in the fourth quarter, and I thought that was a no-brainer. Kick the field goal.
I did too. I just thought, tie the game up, man.
And it worked.
For it.
And it worked. And then, now they're up by 3, and they get the point after blocked.
Yeah, that was a big. So there was 2 special teams plays.
Right, because
really went.
That
for
was
the Chiefs.
That was a special teams win for the Chiefs because the 49ers, they didn't mess up the snap, didn't mess up the hold, didn't mess up the kick. They messed up the blocking. Yeah. And, so now you take a 4-point potential lead. It's a 3-point. It would have affected, how the offense...
There was some the strategy of possibly the Chiefs' last drive. Yeah. If they're down by 4, they know they need to score, so some difference. But overall, it cost them a point.
Yeah. So... Yeah, had they gotten that point, then the game definitely couldn't have tied. So either the Chiefs played harder and were more aggressive in play calls, and they get a touchdown, they don't tie the game to go into overtime.
Right.
But the game would have ended, in regulation. The 49ers, it wasn't. That wasn't a bad luck one. That was just poor execution. They didn't get the kick.
And their kicker, Moody, he had a great night. You know? He made all 3 of his field goals.
He's a rookie, right, from Michigan.
I'm not sure. Is he a rookie? I didn't know that.
I think he's a rookie.
Okay, so I just know he had that 55-yard field goal, which at the time was the longest.
Yeah.
Until Butker kicked the 57-yarder.
5 minutes later.
And then he came back and he made a 53-yarder.
Right.
Which just on a kind of a side, just shows you how much the kickers, like, I think they said that in the 57 previous Super Bowls, there were only 7 field goals of over 50 yards made, and we had 3 in this game. The longest and second longest of any Super Bowl.
Right.
The kickers have really they are so much better than where it used to be. Like, I mean, they're making 50-yarders look like 40-yarders.
Right.
You know?
It's not the odds are much better. Like, when they line up for a 50-yard field goal, you're not like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's like, this has got a really good chance. 3 out of 4 are going in.
Yeah.
And especially indoor. When they play the Super Bowl, it's always in one of the best places. So it was outstanding for kickers.
Normally, conducive.
Even if they're
even
if they're outside, it's in a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But the kickers solid. Yeah. To kick the longest field goal and then to break it like 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
It's like,
that was crazy.
So pretty amazing game. And then only the second overtime game ever.
Right.
58 Super Bowls, and they've only had overtime twice.
Yeah.
That kind of lends itself to why the 49ers didn't quite know the rules, but I don't know. I didn't know the rules either.
Yeah, it's
like I wasn't sure how it was going to work when the Chiefs did score the go-ahead winning score. There's only 3 seconds left in the overtime quarter. Were they just going to roll it over and play another one? Like, I think so.
I'm pretty sure. I at the time I wasn't worried about it. I just thought, like, this just goes in quarters the same kind of way, making me think, okay, so if it goes 2 complete quarters and it's still tied, what do they do at that point?
Yeah. I wasn't sure at all, because the announcers were like, they're really taking their time, and I'm thinking there's 30 seconds on the clock and they're not in a rush.
Yeah.
They clearly, I'm guessing based on their preparation, they already knew that they got as much time as they wanted, even though they were guaranteed each team got a possession. That possession didn't end when the clock ran out.
Right.
Like, if they still had the ball and they still had downs, they were going to just put 15 more minutes up.
Right.
So anyway, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It was a good game.
Yeah.
Start to finish. Halftime was awesome.
Yeah. And you can see the strategic, for overtime, the strategy, because the one thing was both defenses were playing really hard. And we're playing well.
It was amazing.
The scoring at the end started really going up, where you felt like these teams are able to move the ball now. The defenses have worn down a little bit.
A combination of wearing down a little bit and them figuring it out. Yeah. We figured out the weakness. But like for the first, 2.5, 3 quarters, they're talking about how sloppy the offenses are, and they weren't. The defenses were making them look sloppy.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I
defense.
think you're right too. People just, they're saying sloppy because they want to see the high scoring games, but it's just like, listen, man, there's going to be the intensity is so high out there. These guys are so good, and everything's going to go your way.
No, everyone wants to win the Super Bowl.
Adversity. You're going to have to get over it, because they both turned it over a couple times. I saw, they both had 6 penalties, so it's like there's just some stuff, but it's like, hey, in the end, you can't let that stuff, because I kind of think that the Baltimore Ravens in that game against the Chiefs, they just weren't ready for it when it was going to be a really tough game like that, and they made a couple of stupid penalties, and they kind of lost their cool, and it was just
unraveled just a tiny
little bit, just one or two things, and it's just like, well, there you go. That was the
difference.
And this one,
the 49ers didn't.
No, they didn't. They were ready for it, and they like the comeback against the Packers, the comeback against the Lions, and Brock Purdy, he showed that it's like, yeah, man, that dude's not a fluke. I'll admit, I did not believe in him. I really kind of thought that there was a chance he was going to have a really bad day. And it wouldn't have surprised me at all.
No, it wouldn't have surprised anybody, I think, just because he's young and untested. I mean, he's untested at that level.
See, I think I was putting too much stock in last year. When they played the Eagles, and how the Eagles destroyed them, and then looking at how the Ravens destroyed them at the end of the regular season, it wasn't like week 18 or whatever. It was, I don't know, week 15, 16. It was where it still mattered. It was it is in San Francisco, and I just kind of thought, I don't know, man, I kind of got a feeling that but like he was impressive. He showed that the 49ers, they've got a solid quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Good stats. Threw the ball away when it made sense. Didn't force anything. He's still
no interceptions.
He's shifty. He's hard to, with the immense pressure on him. He didn't crack and just throw the ball up for grabs.
Yeah.
He didn't take any stupid sacks.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
They've got a solid quarterback for years to come.
Yeah.
And
he doesn't cost that much.
He doesn't
At least
cost
for a
that
couple
much.
more years.
For 2 more years, they have the luxury of having that quality of a quarterback at the cheapest possible rate.
Yeah.
So they can afford either to stock up. Yeah. They need to change that name.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Like maybe, they'll still be a Mr. Irrelevant every year, but I think he outgrew that name.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't apply at all. Now it's just ironic. It's like that dude, he was probably 1 play away or 2 plays away from being the MVP and winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And, it didn't go his way. He ends up on the losing end, but he's that close.
Yeah.
And either the 49ers keep fortifying their roster or, they can pay the people to stay. Whatever it is, for 2 years, they have the luxury of his very low salary.
Yeah, that helps.
So, I don't know what that translates to their entire roster, but it's got to help because you look at like Lamar Jackson, he's like one of the highest paid, and they're looking at like restructuring everything. The 49ers don't have that. They've got this crazy loophole that they get to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And who would have thought that they would be in that position, drafting the last player ever and having this quality quarterback? So, I would imagine the 49ers will be back next year. Just as good.
On the other side of it, when Patrick Mahomes, when the Kansas City Chiefs traded up in the draft to take Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
I'm pretty sure they took him with the 10th pick, and they knew that the Houston Texans had the 11th pick, and they had to move in front of them because they knew that Houston wanted to take a quarterback. And Houston ended up taking Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Chiefs moved up. They selected Patrick Mahomes. And one of the experts graded that move as a C-. And he said something to the effect of, to say that Patrick Mahomes is a project is an understatement. Something like, he will not be ready to be a starting quarterback in this league for 2 or 3 seasons at best, if he's ever ready. So they gave that trade a C-.
He landed in the best spot. I mean, like, he's got a head coach that isn't just looking at, like, I got to win this quarter, I got to win this game. He's looking at whole seasons, and then a staff that, like, backs that up. So he landed in a great spot. He could have landed in Houston, and he would have been like, Deshaun.
So who's the coach this year?
Yeah, right. Where am I getting traded? Because, I mean, if you put Mahomes in a bad spot, he's running for his life the whole time. Right. Derek Carr.
Right.
He got fortunate.
Yeah.
Like, he's got all the ability and he's got super creativeness, like nobody's business. Some of those highlights, you're just like, nobody should be able to throw the ball falling down like that, but he does.
Yeah.
And he makes mistakes, but they're erased by all of his successes.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story. And he's got years. How many more years can he play?
Yeah, he's only 28 years old.
Yeah. I mean, quarterbacks playing until they're in mid-30s now is not crazy.
Right.
Well, Tom Brady was, 42?
45.
45. That's stupid, right? Yeah. So if he's got 3 Super Bowls now and he's not 30, to put him in that same conversation with Tom Brady as far as winning all those Super Bowls, it's not outrageous.
Hey, and the fun fact, too, we were saying the whole time, he adds to the legend. After last year winning the Super Bowl on one leg, and then this year, after that epic hold against Miami, goes on the road against Buffalo, goes on the road against Baltimore, brings the Chiefs back down by 10 against the 49ers.
They're the underdog in the Super Bowl, and they're playing in their second Super Bowl in a row. Yeah,
underdog in 3 straight games, gets through that, wins it again and everything. So that's 3, and we were saying the whole time, Patrick Mahomes adds to the legend. We're telling you, I'm going to pick the Chiefs. He adds to the legend. You know what he said after this? Okay, so nobody's ever won it 3 straight. Yeah. He says, a 3-peat would be legendary.
Yeah. They're in line. Like, it's not like, oh, this is the end of his career. The team could fall apart next year. All the pieces are still in place. And if Andy Reid stays there and they've already locked down coaching,
Spagnola's back for sure. He signed another contract today, so they locked that defensive coordinator up, and he's the man.
And
so.
if they bolster that a little bit more, let's say bring in Eric
Bieniemy
back,
coming back.
3 is not out of the question. They'll be the favorite. He won't be. If they make it next year, they won't be underdogs. Like, it was kind of stupid they were underdogs this year.
It was kind of funny seeing some of the guys argue about that. Like
the
49ers Chiefs games, and, and they're like, well, who really is the underdog here and everything? Well, technically, the Chiefs are you know.
And I would have been okay if they would have been like the Chiefs are a half-point favorite. Like, because somebody has to be the favorite.
Man.
But to pick the 49ers over them seemed weird.
It did seem weird to me, too.
It wasn't like 5 points, but
that was the other thing. The betting public.
Oh, yeah.
The betting public freaking crushed it
over
the sports books. And they said, like, the big, huge high roller bets were coming in on the 49ers.
Yeah.
And it was, like, the average betting public. And they cleaned up.
Yeah.
Which, that shocked me because when I saw I was surprised, when you saw the 49ers initially. I think they were 2.5-point favorites at the beginning. And then the line came down to 1.5, something like that.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I thought it would be the other way. I thought the Chiefs would be favored by 2.5 right off the bat.
Not a lot, but just enough.
And then it would kind of,
respect, really.
Yeah, just sort of like, we're talking about, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones.
Yeah, but they were the defending champions. It's like they got zero credit for being the defending champs.
Yeah, and after beating the Bills and the Ravens.
All on the road?
On the road? That's what I kept thinking during the game was just like, they can't beat the Bills and Ravens on the road and lose to the 49ers.
Yeah. Yeah. The Vegas didn't do well. No. Like, they won, like they always do. But I think their margins were something like $4 million, considering like $1 billion.
It was crazy amount of money.
Like over $1 billion bet total, and Vegas only came out ahead by like 4 or 5 million.
Yeah.
That just means that if they're wrong by a little bit, Vegas could go out of business.
Big difference.
I think that would be cool, actually. Like Vegas, like they're always like, "Oh, we almost lost." It's like, so you guys win every time. You've never
that? Hand
lost.
Grenades and horseshoes, right? That's where almost.
Right. Vegas always wins. So for them to just barely cover, it's kind of. I think all the money they spent. I wonder if they factored that in. They probably spent more than $4 million on ads.
On ads during the game.
So if you don't take the ads into account, then they probably lost money overall. Yeah. So whatever.
And it was the #1 watched TV program of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an awesome game.
Yeah, not including radio and internet. I mean, just TV alone, most watched ever. And it's still not the most popular sport in the whole world, but it's soccer, but still for one day, the biggest thing on TV.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing. Congratulations to the Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
I think they'll do it. They did it this year. They did it last year, and next year it'll be interesting. 3 in a row. I wonder what Vegas thinks about that. That might be worth a $10 bet.
Yeah, I saw the power rankings today from ESPN. They had the Baltimore Ravens
already?
#1. They had Kansas City #2. They had San Francisco #3, and I can't remember. It may have been the Buffalo Bills #4.
They put Detroit on there?
Something, yeah. Detroit was up there. It basically kind of looked like kind of this year. Where you're like, oh, those guys up there, but
not a stretch.
But not gonna put not putting KC down.
You know what? If I was Andy Reid or anybody in the organization, I'd be happy that we weren't #1.
Yeah.
I'd rather be 3, 4, or 5. Be like, that's cool. You guys just build in a little underestimating.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of. I mean, it's kind of tough now to be under the radar for them, but like a little bit under it, and then also just knowing there's going to be the adversity every year.
Oh yeah.
And who handles that? You're going to have to get over some of that. There's going to be some days where people are not happy with your decisions. What's gone on?
Definitely.
Like that Chiefs Raiders game on Christmas. Oh my God.
That was pretty ugly. But would you have thought this was all going to just come together in the next few weeks? Not exactly. There was a lot of uncertainty after that. Like, what are they doing?
It was difficult to foresee a parade in Kansas City today on that day.
Right.
Although it sounds like that parade didn't get so hot that somebody decided to come with guns and shoot stuff up.
Right.
That's for another day.
Yeah, we'll look at that after they sort it out. That's we'll see who's responsible. That's a bad story.
Yeah.
Like that should be just a pure joyous occasion for that whole region. Because like we've talked about it, Kansas City's not just Kansas City. It's pretty central to like 4 or 5 states. So people from all over get to enjoy regionally get to cheer for that
region
team.
there that's the closest team for them.
Yeah. And so it's a big deal. It's it's more than just like not to pick on like Pittsburgh Steelers, but they've got their area. Like Kansas City has like their area, but like all the surrounding areas, there's just nothing close by.
Yeah.
So they're special in that way that like they appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just it's not cool to mess up their parade.
Yeah.
At all
That's
for
a
any
shame.
reason.
Yeah.
Even if it was just like a simple argument that got out of hand, you can handle it without guns.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking forward to next year.
Yeah.
I think they should be the favorites, but I think they'd probably be happy to be the second or third or fourth favorites.
Yeah.
Tiny little bit of heat off of them.
Yeah.
And they do seem to embrace the underdog. Like we're not quite good enough. Definitely Mahomes does, like with the pick in the draft and whatnot. So they're pretty comfortable there.
Yeah.
I don't see any problems. They should have a lot of their players return. Chris Jones, maybe the biggest question
Chris
mark.
Jones, I know that's one that kind of wondering there and everything. I think that this worked out to me very much in his favor because when the wide receivers were having their struggles during the season, it kind of made me think that if that was what doomed this team, that would not work in Chris Jones's favor because then it made me think that
Too
Brett
much money
Veach and
went
the
to
guys
him
would
and took it
realize
away
this
from
is
them.
why this is why we can't give him this enormous contract and everything is because then we're going to still have the same weak link with the receivers. To see how this played itself out and everything kind of seems like Chris Jones should be a Chief for the rest of his career. He wants that, and that they should make that happen. And the bottom line is that dude to me is every bit Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce kind of player. He is that, you know?
He's that quality, that kind of influence in his position.
Yeah, I think, look, man, you know, some people can argue, you can argue who's the best quarterback in the league. You could argue, I mean, I think with Kelce at tight end, it's really hard to argue against that. But with Chris Jones, I kind of think this is the best defensive player in the league is Chris Jones.
Yeah.
And he's, when you see how good that defense played this year, that to me,
And he missed 3 games to start the season?
He missed the first week.
Oh, just one.
Wait, but
I thought it was 2.
I know he didn't play in the game against the Lions, and you might be right. He may have sat out 2 before he got in there, and that was because they couldn't get the contract done. So they got to get that done. You know, they got to get that done and realize that, hey, at the receiver position and everything, you can address this and everything, but, like, you need to bring this guy back. I think this worked to his favor to show, like, you guys won the Super Bowl, and if you take him off that defense, there's a few plays. I mean, it just seems to me that there's more than just a few plays and everything, but there are a few plays that are going to be devastating if he's not out.
He's not the entire defense, but he sets the tone for a lot of the defense, and you want him there.
Yeah.
And I think the wide receiver core kind of sorted itself out. There's a couple players that I would move on.
Right.
Like, hey, you guys can go play somewhere else next year. And if you replace them with just, quality.
Combination.
They
like we were talking about. Scour those free agents. Look at some of those teams that we were talking about that don't do really well.
Yeah.
But they got some guys. Like that's how they got
picks.
Justin Reed, man. That guy's been huge on that defense. Got him out of Houston. So thinking like, hey, take a look that way, and then in the draft, and everything, like, do your homework. They've had Rashee Rice, yes. Sky Moore, not so much, everything. So,
but they can move him on and replace him with just somebody who does a good job, or somebody who just absolutely loves football, would play it for free kind of guy. None of those guys play for free, but you can kind of pick those guys out where you're like, man, this dude would play for free. Find some just quality possession type receiver people. Even if you took the Chiefs season and you just added I don't know, 2 extra possessions
Right.
or 2 extra receiving,
Yeah.
catches in a game, it changes a lot.
Yeah, you look at that and it's like, okay, so they were 11-6, and you kind of look at it and you're like, well, I tell you what, though, man, if they caught like 3 or 4
balls.
more passes and everything,
Yeah.
and they had like a couple less penalties, just like 1 or 2,
Yeah.
this team would be looking at like 16-1 or 15-2.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, and really, it is the thing where. Looking at that team, you see the final score, you see the game against the 49ers, and man, 25-22. But you think, Harrison Butker had 3 field goals that were less than 30 yards.
Yeah.
So that's 3 times where they're stalling out down there. They are close and thinking like, hey, you start converting these against the Broncos.
Just
Remember
one
those
of
2
them.
games? Against the Broncos this year, lots of field goals, lots of stalling out down there and thinking like, you got to solve this.
Yeah.
Solve this little issue there and everything. And
You don't have to convert all of them, but if you just get 1 or 2
you start
of them,
putting games
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
You know?
games start getting decided 10 minutes before the clock runs out.
Yeah.
And but if you let another team hang around, and it wasn't necessarily that they let the 49ers hang around or the 49ers let the Chiefs hang around, but if you let any team hang around long enough, they're going to figure you out. I mean, all of these coaching staffs,
you're just like
they're highly paid. They practice too.
Yeah, and you're making your margin of error so much tighter.
Right.
That it's just like, hey,
making
you
it harder
convert
for
these
yourself.
into like the Baltimore game. You look at the final score, man, 17-10 and everything, you know. And if Mahomes doesn't complete that pass to Scantling,
Right.
they're going to get another shot
more
out to
chance.
tie this game up. But it's like, hey, in that second half, you put one more score on the board there and everything.
Doesn't matter
Still
if
a
they get the ball
2-possession
back.
game at
Yeah.
the end there. You know, they're not going to come back and beat you.
It's
And
it's not that you need to convert every single time, but if you convert one more time than you did, that's 3 or 7 more points.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. Like it's the difference between a 1 and a 2 possession game, and you can put it away earlier.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the goal for everybody. But,
Yeah, I know, because that's the thing. The league is so freaking tight, man. The teams are so good.
Yeah.
You know.
But if you get the ball down inside the 30, like it's funny that the red zone is the 20-yard line. It almost seems like you get inside the 50-yard line, you want to get down there and score. Anything past midfield, you should be at least kicking a field goal.
Yeah.
So some of those things, like sometimes if you do kick a field goal, that is the best you could have gotten because it just didn't work out. But there's other times when you had penalties or drop passes or just missed opportunities where you're like, this should have been a touchdown opportunity, and we settled for a field goal.
Yeah.
So those are the ones you definitely want to fix.
Yeah.
But it's not always that a field goal is the bad thing.
Right.
Because sometimes that is the best thing you get. Like you get the ball late in the second quarter and you drive down and kick 3 points.
Yeah.
Take it into the locker room. You wouldn't have had enough time to go for a touchdown, but there's definitely times, where you can make that improvement.
Yeah.
The Chiefs do that. You're right. Some of these games would have been,
Because that's the thing is, thinking towards to me next year, like all of these teams are going to be better next year. Like
They should be.
There's, that it's
They should be. The AFC West should be absolutely crazy
it's
next
going
year.
to be so brutal.
So
Yeah, you got Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh now, Antonio Pierce.
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah. Yeah, and Antonio Pierce with what he did with the Raiders,
He
second
pulled.
half, that team looked awful. And
Yeah,
then
he
all
pulled
of a
them
sudden
out of
they
the
were like-
toilet, and they ended up finishing second in the AFC West. So he turned them around quick.
Yep.
And they have all the pieces. They just had poor coaching for the Josh McDaniels. I don't know what that guy does, but he had all the pieces there, and couldn't get it done. But Pierce turned it around.
Yeah.
You give him a whole season.
Yeah.
See what he does.
Yeah.
It should be brutal. You got to win your division first, and then move on. So start with that.
Like we kept talking about, that development of the season, and look at preseason's one thing.
Yeah.
Figuring out who's going to make the team and that kind of stuff, and then the regular season thinking you got to win your division. You've got to make the playoffs, but you got to do this in a fashion that allows you to be, when you get to the playoffs, able to really be at your best. Then
you didn't crush yourself just to get
just
over that first hurdle.
Exactly, to get there, and that's tough. When it's hey,
it's easier to sit here and dissect it, but but still, that's the thing. You got to win your division.
Yeah.
If you don't win your division, now you need help.
Yeah.
So you can still make the playoffs, but But if you win your division, you play a home game.
Yeah.
So it's kicking off the playoffs proper way. You're ready to go. So it'll be here soon. Just a few months away.
Draft will be up.
Yeah,
All
we'll be
right,
here.
man.
Nothing beats
Nothing
rock.
beats rock. Congratulations, Kansas City Chiefs.